Rents are exploding. Wages are stagnating. Entire cities are becoming unaffordable, not just for newcomers, but for people who have lived there their entire lives. And here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. Canada didn't suddenly become unlivable because of one bad year or one bad policy. It's the result of a system that kept expanding, long after it stopped being able to support the people inside it. This isn't a story about blame. It's a story about math. And right now, the math is breaking. The Canada we were promised for decades, Canada sold a very specific image to the world. A country where hard work leads to stability, immigration leads to opportunity, and economic growth benefits everyone, not just the top. And for a long time, that image was mostly true. Canada avoided many of the shocks that hit other Western economies. Its banking system survived global crises. Its cities grew steadily, not explosively, and its population growth felt manageable. But beneath that calm surface, structural problems were quietly piling up, and once immigration numbers surged faster than infrastructure, housing, and wages could adapt, the cracks became impossible to ignore. The immigration engine that never slowed down. Canada's immigration policy is often described as bold, progressive, and forward-thinking. In theory, the logic is simple. More people mean more workers. More workers mean more growth. More growth means higher living standards. But that equation only works if supply keeps up with demand. And in Canada, it didn't. Population growth accelerated at a pace the country had never experienced before, especially in major urban centers like Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Montreal. Newcomers arrived faster than homes could be built, transit systems could expand, healthcare could absorb demand, wages could adjust. Immigration itself wasn't the problem. The problem was scale and timing. Canada opened the door wide at the exact moment when housing construction, productivity growth, and public services were already struggling. Housing, where the crisis becomes visible. If there's one place where Canada's economic stress becomes undeniable, it's housing. Prices didn't just rise, they disconnected from reality. In many cities, average home prices far outpaced income growth. Rents climbed faster than inflation. Vacancy rates dropped to historic lows. For young Canadians, the idea of owning a home shifted from difficult to almost impossible. For newcomers, the promise of opportunity collided with the reality of overcrowded apartments, long commutes, and rising debt. And this created a silent but powerful tension. Not cultural, not political, economic, too many people chasing too few homes, and a system that treats housing as an investment first and shelter second. Wages versus reality. Here's the part often missing from official talking points. Canada's wage growth has not kept pace with housing costs, food inflation, transportation expenses, and basic living standards. Yes, unemployment numbers may look stable on paper, but stability doesn't mean prosperity. Many workers are earning more on paper but less in real terms, taking on second jobs just to stay afloat, delaying family plans, home ownership, and long-term savings. This hits immigrants and native-born Canadians alike. The difference is that newcomers often arrive with expectations shaped by outdated promises and quickly discover a far harsher reality. Productivity, the quiet weak spot. Oh, Canada has a problem few people like to talk about. Productivity. Compared to other advanced economies, Canada's productivity growth has been weak for years. That means businesses generate less value per worker. Wages rise more slowly. Economic growth relies more on population increases than efficiency. Immigration temporarily masks this issue by expanding the labor force, but it doesn't fix the underlying problem. Without productivity gains, adding more people doesn't raise living standards, it dilutes them, and that's exactly what many Canadians are starting to feel. The strain on public services, population growth isn't just about housing. It affects everything. Hospitals face longer wait times. Schools operate at capacity. Public transit systems stretch beyond design limits. These systems were built for a smaller, slower growing population. When growth accelerates faster than investment, quality declines, even if funding increases. And when quality declines, frustration grows. Not because people reject immigration, but because daily life becomes harder, slower, and more expensive. The two-tier reality. Emerging one of the most worrying trends in Canada today is the emergence of a two-tier experience. On one side, asset owners, established professionals, people who bought homes years ago. On the other, renters, young workers, or recent immigrants, and those entering the labor market today. The gap between these groups is widening, not due to effort, not due to values, but due to timing. And when opportunity becomes dependent on when you arrived rather than what you contribute, trust in the system erodes. The myth of endless demand. For years, policymakers leaned on one assumption: that demand will always justify higher prices, that people will always come, that the market will always absorb growth, that Canada's reputation alone will carry it forward. But demand has limits. When rents consume most of a paycheck, when wages lag behind living costs, when quality of life declines instead of improves, people don't stop coming overnight, but they stop staying. And increasingly, some are leaving. The risk Canada is now facing isn't facing collapse, but it is facing stagnation, which can be just as dangerous. A country where growth looks strong on paper, but living standards quietly fall, and frustration becomes normalized. That's how long-term decline begins. Not with a crash, but with disappointment. If housing remains scarce, wages remain weak, and productivity remains low. Immigration alone cannot save the system. It can only delay the reckoning. What needs to change? There is no single fix, but the direction is clear. Canada needs housing supply that actually matches population growth. Productivity-focused investment, not just population expansion. Wage growth tied to real output, not optimism. And immigration targets aligned with infrastructure capacity. This isn't about closing doors. It's about rebuilding the foundation before adding more floors. The bigger question: Canada is still a wealthy country, still stable, still full of opportunity. For now. But the model it relied on for decades is reaching its limits. And the real question is no longer, how many people can Canada attract? It's, how many people can Canada support without lowering the quality of life for everyone? Because if that question remains unanswered, this crisis won't explode. It will simply get worse.